Now, access to water is a major challenge to some communities in the Savalugu district of the northern region. The only natural source of water for 5 communities in the area has dried out as a result of the impact of climate change. Prince Apia traveled to the area and has more in the following report.
Heavily pregnant Fuseni Fatima carries 4 gallons on her head and walks more than 20 minutes to get water. Covering this distance has been her daily routine for months, even in her condition. Children are not spared this ordeal. 10-year-old Saiba Aishetu and her friends ride bicycles for close to an hour to get water from the neighboring community. Resting on this scaffold is a water tank right in the middle of Zogu community, meant to supply water to residents. The idle water tank is connected to a solar mechanized well drilled in 1999. The well was, however, constructed by international NGO World Vision for the community in 2015. But water does not flow through the pump anymore because some of the solar panels are rusted and damaged. Adam Tahiru is a community leader.
So I'm a Jossma de Cunya de Malada da Lafi, Quablan Yerna Chocunia. I bought Uncle, Come can I buy Uncle? And I think you time shall when I do copan and more capitan but that not to quiet. Soon shall gani. How come my problem check at the Sukotoma? Cat the Sukotoma carbon repeat. One problem.
Very critical and located in the center of these 5 communities is this dam, which is supposed to be a water source. 5 communities, Jagun, Kuku, Teho, Sanjago, and Zogo, fetch water from here. The water dam is now a bare land due to the dry spell. So this is the net of someone who used to fish here. But mind you, this was a source of drinking water and a source of fish for residents living around this particular area. But because of the impact of climate change, the harsh weather conditions, all the water on this particular land has dried out and it's now left with this cracked soil. To mo bang ma ba shimbe ro to sur la gomenti ne yin media ne mo ne cha kun so ma pare gomenti mi no kwamba ka lete sunsuno mo almani ne satana to maladira amfa no kor wun ne shan. Residents in these communities are predominantly farmers and dependent on this source of water to cultivate their farms. The farmers are currently unable to cultivate vegetables because there's no water for irrigation. Mr. Tahiru says a good number of its youth are migrating down south for greener pastures. So, the born come on to Malmotatalma. Sashelton Janwadinia to Malamotale. To Zobima and Tebima Banchan Kaya, Tiam Mala Quaptishi, Anya Bokulan Tuchang. Mitigating the impact of climate change remains critical to secure the livelihoods of the people here. Else, the woes of Saiba Aishetu and Fuseni Fatima, for instance, will continue for a long time until the water problem is fixed. Prince Apia reporting.
Let's go over to Zoom now and speak to Professor Isaac Tete, climate scientist at Department of Environmental Science at the KNUST. Thank you very much, sir. Now, what is Ghana's mitigation, measure, or what are the efforts with respect to climate change and the rains that we are not experiencing?
All right, thank you. First of all, we know that climate is a very complex phenomenon, and we have to approach it in various ways. One important thing that we need to focus on is how to mitigate climate, which is emanated from man-made or anthropogenic effects. Precisely, we are emitting so many greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Then we're also destroying the land. When we perturb the land, we also emit some of these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And when these atmospheric circulations continue to take place, eventually they also affect the land and the rainfall patterns. And therefore, one way to mitigate climate change is to find a solution to it. And one of the solutions is to do what is technically called climate geoengineering. And when we talk about climate geoengineering, we have two facets: how to manipulate the energy coming from the sun so that it wouldn't be so much intense, and also at the same time trying to sequester or capture greenhouse gases, which tend to warm the land or warm the atmosphere. So when the warming is so rampant or intense, then we have high evapotranspiration. And when these things occur, then we expect that the land will become dry. As we saw in the picture, they have become cracked. And in this situation, it will be protracted as long as human beings continue to perturb the environment or the climate system.
But can we accelerate our adaptation programs? If so, what can we do?
Right. Adaptation can be done, but it is very, very costly. We have to understand that. It is very costly, but we also have to start from somewhere. One way to do that adaptation is to be mindful of reforestation. You see, the more you try to plant trees, the more mitigate you tend to sequester or capture the greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, which will tend to retain heat in the atmosphere and cause drought and dryness. Okay. So the plants are able to capture all these greenhouse gases like CO2, methane, and others to ensure that large quantities in the atmosphere are arrested, and the plant will be able to use it to produce oxygen that will go to help the ecosystem very much. Okay. So our forestation program should be very, very, very critical. Then also we shouldn't disturb the land, because when you make the land bare, then there's a concept that is called albedo. Albedo is the fraction of light that is dispersed back into the atmosphere or into space. So when you disturb the land, there's surface roughness, which will create conditions where there will be vertical lifting of wind and moisture are all curtailed. When this happens, there's no way that moisture can be carried into the atmosphere for it to be condensed to come down as rain. So we have to be looking into the way that we are disturbing the land. The more land we disturb, the more we also interfere with the processes that should take place on the Earth's surface that will lead to convection or rainfall patterns. So these are the...
Yes,
these are the... Yeah, please go on.
Ghana's national climate change policy, for instance, demands that we build resilient climate infrastructure. You think that we are on course with that policy?
All right. Thank you. I think we are making a headway, but more room. We need to act more and swiftly. I think recently during the World Environment Day, I think the government did very well by trying to urge all of us to plant trees. When you plant a tree, it is one of the mitigation measures. Okay. And it's going to go a long way to capture the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which tend to disturb the climate system. So that effort alone is commendable. And at the local level too, all of us should be mindful and should be enthusiastic in planting trees and certain shrubs and even certain perennials, such as we call it kinaf trees. It's a crop which we use it to make jute or sacks. They are able to capture large quantities of CO2 in the atmosphere. We also have to be mindful of trying to do or adapt technologies that will minimize pollution from source. And I think this is the essence of Go Green technology, which has come on board. So the government has done very well, but we also need to accelerate. And the acceleration calls for good education for every Ghanaian to understand the concept of climate change and its implications.
And Prof, just before you take leave of us, there are some who are watching and saying that this whole climate change is a borrowed, term and a program from the West. This may be far from us. In just 30 seconds, are we experiencing the effect of climate change here in Ghana? Is this real?
Right. Yes, climate change is real. It's not a hoax at all. The pictures that we saw before this particular invitation, we saw the northern region, how the land is cracked, tells us that there is more to it than what we have been seeing. Climate is an unseen phenomenon. Unlike certain physical phenomenon that we tend to see, you see a lorry moving, you see vehicle moving, you see human beings moving. But climate acts in a secret way, if I should say that. So because the climate is unseen physically with the eye, you tend to accumulate our effect by and by. And at a scale, it hits us back, and the quantum is so huge that now we see its effect. So it is not a hoax at all. We see the weather patterns, and we see the changes in the weather, as well as the drought that will occasion in certain places. And all these things are manifestations of climate change. So we also have to tackle the bull by its horn and ensure that the right things are done. If we're able to do that, we can restore the climate or the environment.
I'm grateful that you could join us. That's Professor Isaac Teta, who is a climate scientist at the KNUST. Now, with the latest reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, predicting severe drought in Africa in the coming decades, Arizona-based water production firm Source looks forward to meeting water-related challenges in Ghana's rural communities and schools. Source Hydro Panel is an autonomous solar system that can collect up to 10 liters of potable water per day from the air by harvesting water vapor from the air and condensing it into liquid atmospheric water generators, essentially extract water from the air. Chief Revenue Officer at Source Global, Robert Bartrop, spoke to journalist Mahmoud Mohamed Noordin.
The Source Hydro Panel is a technology that incorporates multiple patented inventions, making it one of a kind renewable water technology that uses the power of the sun to extract clean, pollutant-free drinking water from the air. Chief Revenue Officer at Source, Robert Bartrop, in a Zoom interview said the firm is purpose-driven to partner with the government of Ghana in providing an independent source of drinking water for schools and rural communities.
Ghana would be a great opportunity for us, given the number of challenges there with the drinking water in the remote parts of the country, in particular. So we would love to do that. Maybe even something in Boku, in your hometown.
Yeah. What do we need to do to get this technology
so
in Ghana?
We want to. We're really looking for the people for introductions to the people who are trying to solve these problems. So parts of the government, parts of the non-profit sector, and companies who are looking for improved drinking water solutions in parts of the community. They can approach us and we can either partner with them business-wise, or we can essentially invest in the water infrastructure and then allow the end users to pay for the water. And so really,
Source needs no infrastructure or electricity, and it is resistant to storms, flooding, and can produce safe, clean water in the driest place on earth. It is designed and tested to produce high-quality potable water.
How is this water stored for consumption?
Yeah, so at a really basic level, the water is stored inside the panel. So the 10 litres in a day that I get from my roof, I've got 60 litres of storage capacity in the panel. So about 6 days of production stored inside the panel in a reservoir. and that water is kept monitored for quality and also ozonated. So we maintain a really high level of quality in that water. For larger applications, like a industrial facility or a larger village installation, we also have a separate 10,000 or 20,000 litre reservoir where people can come and dispense from. So we've done community projects here in the US where we have, a town of a couple of thousand people coming to fill up reusable containers from a 20,000 litre reservoir where they can come and refill, in a circular model, their containers for their fridges.
Source water means the primary drinking water standards established by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the World Health Organization drinking water guidelines. The technology is optimized for a wide range of conditions and can even produce water under low to moderate sun and humidity.
It's like a solar panel, it's scalable. So the more water you need, the more panels we use. And a basic household installation, like in my house here in Arizona, I've got 2 panels.
Johnny Sprime with me, and as Minister.